How can the Minnesota Vikings beat the Detroit Lions? It's going to be a tough challenge for the Vikings as they go into Ford Field and try to win in a place where they haven't won in some time. In fact, they haven't won since Thanksgiving Day 2017. It's going to take a team effort, and hopefully the health of all their players continues to get better. But we had a setback today. We're going to talk about all that and more here on the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy, where on your first $5 play using the promo code FORNO on sign up, you can get $100 in bonus credits. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, is producer Dave. He's got a nice little bourbon in his hand. We're here to talk some more Minnesota Vikings. If you need more when you're done with this, I recommend you go listen to today's X's and Skulls. And then yesterday, Dave caught up with the rest of the NFC North on the NFC North show. Both of those are in the live section of the YouTube channel. Go check those out when you're done here. Dave, we're in a really interesting spot with this Minnesota Vikings team because they, let's just be real, they desperately need a win. They have to find a way to get this done. And their playoff lives are kind of in danger right now. It's weird to say going into week 9 when the Vikings have only played 7 games, but the schedule looks pretty difficult as we continue to move forward. And look, this isn't going to be an easy game, but they got to win.
They got the number 1 toughest schedule in the league for the remaining games, per somebody that measures all that stuff.
Is it by record? Is it by DVOA? How, do you remember?
I don't remember who put it out, but it was the Vikings are number 1 by far.
Yeah,
with the most difficult schedule left.
There's some really interesting kind of caveats across the board when it comes to this whole sorry, brain fart. When it comes to the schedule itself, because strength of schedule is such an interesting construct, because a lot of times strength of schedule is determined going into the year by last year's record. And we see it time and time again. Good teams regress, bad teams progress, and having those elements kind of makes strength of schedule obsolete. We had it last year where the Vikings, oh my gosh, if they win 2 games of their first 5, it's huge. And they go 5-0. This year, it's like, oh, the Vikings should be able to go 5-0 in that stretch. And they went 3-2. It's so hard to really project that kind of thing going into a season in the National Football League. And hell, who knows? Like, the Detroit Lions aren't as good as they were last year. The Vikings aren't as good as they were last year. The Packers might be the weirdest team in the NFL where they play like crap, and then all of a sudden they're up by 10 points. It's a weird league, and those kind of elements are going to continue to be at play. And the Vikings, look, they've been really hurt by injuries this year. They've also hurt themselves with their own play, and we can't beat around the bush. They are the biggest reason why they're 3-4, not the injuries. There were opportunities in those losses to be able to get the win, but they shot themselves in the foot, whether it be timely interceptions, penalties, 3rd and longs being converted on against your defense. This team is in the position that they're in because of all of those things. It's not one singular factor. Now, one singular factor that can get them out of that position is by everybody playing well as a cohesive football team. Are they going to be able to pull that off? We'll find out on Sunday. But there are a lot of different elements at play that we're going to talk about here tonight that is honestly going to be a huge factor in helping this team take the next step in getting those wins. And the number one thing is the injuries. The injuries have been really detrimental to this team, but we've had players step up in others' absence. Eric Wilson has been a very serviceable linebacker, and he's played so well that Ivan Pace has taken a significantly diminished role on the defensive side of the football. And I think
Eric Wilson is Ivan Pace.
Yep. But it's also because of Andrew Van Ginkel, because if you, when you watch the defense, he's lining up at edge rusher sometimes, and he's not even trying to play like an off ball linebacker spot. So injuries and but he also got a lot more playing time because of Blake Cashman. So injuries and other elements are at play. And then when you have these conversations, it does boil down to that fact. And while we continue to have it, we did see progress from Jonathan Greenard. He was a full participant with that foot/ankle injury, but we also saw a decrease in Christian Darrisaw's participation. And I'm trying to get clarification because it was interesting with Darrisaw himself. He was listed with the knee injury going into this whole week. So Wednesday, he was a full participant because of the knee. And because of that, I don't think you can change it to not injury-related rest when you don't have him practice on Thursday. So Alec Lewis reported this just about 25 minutes ago now. And I asked him for some clarification because here's exactly what he said. On the Christian Darrisaw DMP today, was told that this is not an official rest day, but that it's part of Christian Darrisaw's recovery program overall. He's now more than a year removed from the torn ACL and MCL. It's worth watching. Well, what does that mean? And I'm hoping to get an answer by the end of the show because I'm curious if it's just semantics to where, hey, it's a part of his process, but we can't list it as a recovery rest day, or if it's a little bit more concerning than that. Because the way he framed it, and I don't think this is necessarily intentional, it leaves that open to interpretation. Because it's a touchy subject right now with Christian Darrisaw's knee. Last week, on Wednesday, the final injury report, he got listed with the knee injury after not being on the report for the first 2 days. And then he played the first 2 series and then was out the rest of the game. This week, full participation on Wednesday, not practicing Thursday. Hey, now we got another red flag. What is this red flag? I think we're going to get more clarity and information on that, hopefully by the end of the day. Hopefully Alec gets back to me and kind of lets me know if it's more of a semantics thing or if it's more closer to a serious concern. Whatever that is, it's not a good sign for him to go from full practice to DMP on the injury report. If they were able to list it as a not injury related rest thing, which has been the status quo all season long, to where he does stuff on Wednesday and then he doesn't on Thursday as a part of that rest, we'll find out. But it's a difficult conversation either way because you want to be able to see Darrisaw back on the field. And quite frankly, you need him. You need him to play well. And you're going up against a guy in Aiden Hutchinson who just got a mega deal. Personally, I think he's overvalued at $45 million a year. But the way that the Lions have structured their contracts and paid guys out now is advantageous for when the salary cap likely spikes in a big way next year because of the new TV deals that are going to come around and pay a ass load of money. Like right now, the TV deals are like, I think CBS and Fox are paying like $2.4 billion a piece or something per year. It's just an absurd amount of money. And maybe that's just the total value of the deal, but they're paying crazy dollars for this. And that's going to go up because of the one thing with the TV industry, having followed it with being a wrestling fan and trying to analyze like wrestling TV deals and ratings, is people are paying for live sports. They're paying a ton of money for live sports because live sports is what draws the most viewers. Television shows don't draw as much anymore because you have such a backlog of stuff. I watch stuff on the streaming services I have, and I just kind of cycle through, and I don't really watch any brand new TV shows unless it's HBO. So I'm assuming there's a lot more people like me because you're seeing this heavy pivot to live sports. Fox, instead of having Friday Night SmackDown, WWE, they have a college football game on Friday nights. That transition is going to only benefit the National Football League. And the reason why we're talking about television ratings is because there's going to be a boom in the salary cap likely in 2028 when those deals get signed. Because if you remember when Sunday Ticket went to YouTube TV, the salary cap went up like an extra $7 to $10 million per team. Why? The players get a significant portion of that money. And because the players get a significant portion of the money, where does it go? Salaries. And all of that factors in. So the fact that the Lions have paid all these guys so early, they can maneuver with the cap and they can maneuver how the money hits the cap. And that's going to help them long term be able to sustain whatever this is going to continue to be for Dan Campbell's team. But because you have Aiden Hutchinson, who is now being paid like the second best edge rusher in the league, even though he's more like 10th, you have a look, let's put it this way. Hutchinson, when he has to just win one-on-one, isn't nearly that good. But what they do such a good job of in Detroit is scheming him to where he can have easy matchups. And he can have it to where he's not just going up against a true one-on-one pass set. Because of how they utilize that, it makes him so much more effective and impactful because he has a relentless motor and he has a really good spin move. Those factors matter when you're having this conversation. And who's really good at handling that kind of stuff? Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw, both of whom are at this point very questionable to play. They haven't been given an official designation, but when you have Christian Darrisaw not practicing on Wednesday or Thursday, and then Brian O'Neill has been limited the first 2 days of practice, there are real concerns there. And if you can't stop Aiden Hutchinson with the likes of Justin Skule and Walter Rouse, that could completely debilitate anything you're trying to do in the passing game with JJ McCarthy. And that's another factor. McCarthy is a full participant. He's going to play on Sunday. And that's a great thing for everybody because now we can start getting more information about if JJ McCarthy is the guy, and we don't have to watch Carson Wentz play football anymore. All the best to him in his recovery, and thank you for your service. Boy, I am glad to not have to watch another Carson Wentz played football game this season. It was rough. And hopefully McCarthy has done enough this year and seen enough to where he can fix some of the mistakes that he had in those first two games, especially because he now has games to compare it to. He has games that he's played that he can be like, okay, I need to fix this, and this, instead of just looking at tape and watching other players play. That's a factor in itself. So I'm really excited to see what McCarthy brings to the table and how Kevin O'Connell adjusts for JJ McCarthy, like he adjusted heavily for Carson Wentz, is going to tell us a lot about where McCarthy's at, about what the staff feels about McCarthy, because what they should be doing is making the game as easy as possible for him and then continue to give him more and more difficult assignments, because you don't want to be in a situation, Dave, where all of a sudden you're giving this guy all these difficult assignments and he can't even do the simple ones because he had struggles with some of the more difficult route concepts and he nailed others of them. Oh, what, Dave, what is a super sticker? Is that new?
Yeah, sort of. It's a super sticker from Tasty Treats, 99 cents.
Hey, that's pretty cool. We'll take that. Thank you very much, Tasty Treats. I don't think I've seen Tasty Treats in the chat before. Welcome. We're glad to have all of you here today. And while you're here, make sure you go log into the Discord and sign up and join our server. You can find that in the show notes below. And all the members of the YouTube channel get access to the Rumor Mill and Ask Forno Anything channels. Whenever we hear anything spicy going on in the Rumor Mills, you're going to be the only ones to know. We're not going to share it on the show. We're going to drop it just in that channel. And that's going to be an extra benefit for members of the YouTube channel, not just subscribers, but the paid members. So you're going to want to check that out. There's also going to be a lot more fun stuff with draft season. Oh, I'm going to be sharing a lot of clips. We're going to be talking a lot of prospects, and we're already having a lot of good discussion on a regular basis in the Discord, especially during the games. So you're going to want to make sure you check that out. Plus, if you miss anything here, it'll pop up right there. It's just a nice one-stop shop, and all of my A to Z stuff goes in there too. I'm going to see if Alec has responded to me. Nope, I'm still waiting on that, but that's okay. Alec is a busy guy. We're all busy. So I think kind of what we should talk about next is kind of what some of the things that we can expect from Kevin O'Connell. I talked about just now how they made a lot of adjustments for Carson Wentz, and those adjustments may not have felt as extreme. A lot of times when I talk to people, they associate quick game with quick slants, and it's just like Madden stuff. So That's what they associate quick game with. Oh, they're not doing enough of it. Quick game itself is a lot of different things. It can be a bubble screen. It can be a quick speed out. It can be a quick hitch, like a stick concept. Like when you utilize spacing, TJ Hawkinson option route where he just runs 5 yards up the field and then breaks a certain direction based on the leverage of the defender. There are a lot of different ways to run quick game. And yeah, he doesn't do a lot of quick slants, but that's not a lot with how his formations are set up. Quick slants don't necessarily do a whole lot for how you operate this offense. So he does stuff that works based on the confines of how he already structures it. And with Wentz, what he would do is he would design things to be like a one read and go. So a lot of times what they do is they'd isolate Justin Jefferson on one side and see if they can get a one-on-one matchup. And if they did, they'd throw it. If he didn't like it well enough, one play that they liked to do was they'd have a backside screen. So they'd have Jordan Mason or Aaron Jones flare out to the other side, and there'd be 3 blockers ready to go, lined up and ready to take on defenders. Well, Carson Wentz would also miss that throw because of course he did. But those are the different types of things that we're talking about, the different elements of the conversation. And I think that is a very important element when we're having this conversation. They didn't do a lot of that for McCarthy in the first couple games. They didn't have those kind of plays where once Wentz got in and they saw, hey, he just can't do the things that we believe McCarthy can do. That he can't do the things that we saw McCarthy do when McCarthy was in training camp. And Delton asked an interesting question. JJ talking about obeying orders. I'm going to be honest, I haven't checked out that interview. That could just be from a medical perspective. Obeying orders, like when you were in health class, they talked about RICE. Rest, ice, compress, and elevate to try and help heal those injuries to your leg. That could just be as simple as that. So I'd have to watch.
There was a second part to the question. Is he being overcoached?
Well, that's what I mean. I don't know about the obeying orders, so I can't answer the second part. Like I'd have to figure out what the obeying orders means before answering the second part, because if it's just a medical thing, that's not really an overcoached thing. And I don't think it would be tough for me to equate the two without knowing the context of the first part, because it very well could be that he's being overcoached. And we've talked about all the time. If you're thinking on the field, you're losing. You can't think. You have to react. You have to see and adapt quickly. You can't think, because if you're thinking, you're losing. That goes on offense. That goes on defense. So I'll have to check that out and kind of see the context, Delton. But it could be that he's overcoached. I don't think he is. But that's also from an outside perspective looking in. So we're going to get more information on McCarthy this weekend, and I'm very glad that we're going to get it, because I'm sick of being in a position where we're trying to figure out what this is, trying to figure out what JJ McCarthy is going to be. We just need to see it on the field. And he goes up against the Lions defense that, look, it's a very well-coached unit. Kelvin Shepard had a very bad debut. So did offensive coordinator John Morton. They were bad. And it was that simple. But when you have new coordinators come in, it can take a little bit to get the rust off, to kind of get into a flow, to understand, hey, how are we going to call this defense in game? And are you going to call it the same as what Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson did? Are you going to have your own vision? What is that going to look like? And you know what? They righted the ship, and their only 2 losses are to the Packers and Chiefs, both on the road. So it feels like the Lions have righted the ship somewhat. But what is that going to look like against the Vikings? How different are they going to be able to expect those units from what they've seen in previous years? Especially because the personnel is almost the same, but you're just having a new voice in the room. Sometimes that's a good thing. I talked about how maybe having a new voice in the offensive side of the football for the Vikings could be a good thing, with maybe replacing Chris Cooper and Wes Phillips. Not that they're bad coaches, but sometimes you just need new blood, new people having these discussions, conversations, and setting up game plans. So we'll kind of see what that ends up looking like. And I think one thing I'm really looking forward to seeing is how this Vikings team ends up going after these units, because you have Jared Goff, who's a good football player. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs, who are good football players, and the way they structure that offense to maximize what Jared Goff is good at is very, very good. But the one thing that's really tough is Jared Goff struggles against the blitz, but he's also really good against beating the Vikings blitzes because of how they play. And we talked about it on X's and SKOLs with the middle of the field stuff and how the middle of the field deal goes wide open because of how they utilize their coverages. And Amon-Ra St. Brown can just turn around after 5 yards, catch the ball, and go upfield another 5 to 10 and just continue to get little chunks of yards consistently. Well, if the pressure gets home, Jared Goff is beatable. He's very beatable, but he's also good enough to still be able to get the ball off and know where his receivers are going to be in those short zones to where it doesn't matter half the time. Because if you look at his passer ratings, specifically when he's kept clean, last year was 124 out of 158.3. When he was pressured, when he was blitzed, it dropped down to 78. That's a big gap. So getting those blitzes home is going to be huge, but you have to be careful because he can still pick you apart by getting the ball out super quick. And
what we grabbed Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave for. So
theoretically,
have to blitz.
Well, I don't think they brought them in so they didn't have to blitz all the time. They're still blitzing at a very high rate. My big thing about this team is they're just not getting home when they're getting pressure. And when you look at it, they are getting a lot of pressure. They're getting more pressure per game this year than they were last year. The problem is they're getting sacks 12.36% less of the time on those pressures than they were last year. And some of that, as Luke mentioned on X's and SKOLs, please go check that out. Half of which comes from just the quarterbacks being able to evade it and being strong enough, because you have guys like Greenard and Jonathan Allen who are getting their arms on the quarterback, and against some quarterbacks, they'll go down. You know, they may go down against a Tua, they may go down against a Jared Goff, but they're not going down against Caleb Williams, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Herbert, who have significant strength in their lower halves. So how is that going to be fixed? How are they going to be able to finish in the pocket? Because that's going to be a huge factor in being able to take that next step and be able to really maximize this defense, because it's not designed for the pressure to not get home. And that's the tough part. When the pressure gets home, this defense is cooking. It's incredible to watch. And we saw that last year. When the pressure works, oh, buddy, it's awesome. Think about the Texans game and how they made CJ Stroud's life a living hell. They were just in his face every single drive, nearly every single play, and they couldn't do anything on offense. 34-7, just drubbing in week 3. Those things matter. You have to be able to finish the pressure. You have to be able to impact him enough where a guy like Jared Goff can hit Amon-Ra St. Brown 6 yards down the field. CJ Stroud at that point couldn't do that. So if you are going to blitz Jared Goff, you need to get home quickly, and you need to get those hands up, and you need to impact him the way that it's going to impact the whole offense, not just the quarterback itself.
Yeah, but part of it's also not chasing the lead and going out ahead, scoring early, scoring often.
Mm-hmm.
And so the defense can pin their ears back and rush those passers, which we haven't seen this season, except for the Cincinnati game.
Yeah, that's another interesting part to this conversation too, because I don't know. I just brain farted again. Been a busy day over here in the Forness house. Everything factors in. And how can the Vikings end up maximizing the pressure? How can will they just try to send 4, and will they just try to get pressure? I think one thing that we haven't been able to see, which is kind of my saving grace for this defense, Dave, is you have not seen this defense play enough with Andrew Van Ginkel and Dallas Turner on the field at the same time. And I don't think they're going to do a ton of like the NASCAR packages, but what they can do is they can bring in Van Ginkel, Turner, and Greenard. They can have Blake Cashman, and they can have 2 defensive tackles. All right, who's coming and who's dropping? Because now all of a sudden you have 4 guys capable of dropping. So then now you can maximize sim pressures. Now you can really mess with the quarterback. That's a big factor in this whole conversation. I do think they've missed Van Ginkel, but not necessarily for the reasons that other people have said. I think it's going to be a really big deal when he comes back because of his ability to drop into coverage and run those simulated pressures. If you guys don't remember, simulated pressures when you look like you're going to blitz and then you drop. When you have Van Ginkel and Turner, I think, has suffered a little bit from a perception standpoint because of, one, the quarterbacks that they faced. Two, he's playing the strict Van Ginkel role. And I think the role that he was designed to play has not been able to be unleashed yet because they don't have the ability to have Van Ginkel in there as that other edge rusher. They don't have the kind of edge rusher depth that they did last year. And because of that, it's impacting some of the things that I think they want to do. And I think we're going to see a lot more from Dallas Turner. I really do. I think he's been good this year. I don't think he's been an elite player. I think if you want to criticize them for the one trade to go up and get him from 23, I think that's completely valid. I think it's complete bullshit if you combine the two trades to go get him, because that's just not what happened. That was not the process. If you want to criticize Kwesi for, hey, maybe after making that first trade, you shouldn't make that other trade up. That's a different conversation, but that's not Dallas Turner's fault, and that shouldn't be placed on him. We have to be able to utilize nuance and context when having these discussions, because Turner, if you want to say it was too much to give up a 3, 4, and a 5 to go get him, that is fair and valid. I understand it. But also remember this. Don't make any qualifying judgments about Dallas Turner either. He's 22 years old. He's played less than 600 snaps in the National Football League, and he's got all the talent in the world. They're asking him to do a lot. They're asking him to be an off-ball linebacker. They're asking him to be a good edge rusher. And you know what? He's got 18 pressures on just 125 pass rush reps. He's still finding a way to pressure the quarterback. And a lot of those pass rush reps, he's being asked to play contain, where that Lane Johnson rep that everybody wanted to pick him apart for, where he just kind of bull rushes him and then holds his ground. That's intentional. You don't want him to do a secondary move or like a spin or a club rip or a swim. You want him to hold the offensive tackle there so Jalen Hurts can't escape the pocket that way. They're trying to push him to the other side so Blake Cashman could go take him down. And understanding the nuance of those pass rush reps, I think, is so important in having the Dallas Turner conversation. Once Van Ginkel comes back, I think we're going to see a lot more positive stuff when it comes to Dallas Turner, when it comes to what he can be long-term, because he wasn't just drafted to be a sack artist. He was drafted to be a jack of all trades. And if you don't like that process, I think it'd be fair to criticize, say, hey, you know what? Maybe it wasn't the best move to draft a guy that you're just going to ask to do a billion different things. That's a fair criticism. But I think we have to be smarter and give more context about how we criticize the Dallas Turner situation, because what he's being asked to do, he's doing a good job of it. And I don't think he's an elite football player. I think he can be. We'll find out if he can ever get there. But he's doing a really good job in the role that he's being asked to do. And that role, honestly, is pretty thankless, which is why I've made the Anthony Barr comparison consistently. A thankless role. If you continue to do things that you're not going to get credit for, but you're doing them well, and it's helping the defense, that's essentially what Anthony Barr was for years. Anthony Barr made 4 consecutive Pro Bowls, and he earned them all. And Turner's probably not going to get to that point, but it's a conceptual thing, not a one-to-one comparison. He's a conceptual modern-day version of what Anthony Barr was. Asked to do a lot of different things, do them well, and do things that impact the defense, or offense in a way that does not make the headlines. And Delton says to move him to safety. And look, I got a friend of mine who wants to move him to off-ball linebacker. I think putting him in one specific spot isn't necessarily the route you want to go. You want to have him be super fluid and be able to do a little bit of everything, because that's why he's so special. He's a special type of athlete. Pigeonholing him, I don't think is going to help. But because you're asking him to do so many different things, you can't expect super linear growth and progression as a pass rusher, because he's doing all this stuff off the ball and in coverage. It's going to take a little bit longer for some of that to really resonate. But once it does, the overall vision of Dallas Turner, I think we're going to really see where we're at after year 3. Because next year he could easily have like 10 sacks, 2 interceptions, couple forced fumbles, and like 5 PBUs. And we're looking at him like, this dude is a perennial Pro Bowler. I think that's a realistic possibility for what we've been getting from him so far. But it takes time and it takes development and nurturing, and only playing the 310 snaps, which, look, in hindsight, you would have liked him to play more, but you weren't taking Van Ginkel and Greenard off the field to do it. That's where the tough part comes in. So we'll see, and we're going to keep a close eye on him and see how he continues to grow and develop. But right now, I'm very happy with where Turner currently is and where I think he's going to continue to go. He's a good football player. And understanding some of that nuance and context, I think, is really important.
Okay. Now, how can we beat him?
Easy. Pass rush. It's that simple. And before we get there, Dave, I think we should tell our friends on how to beat Underdog Fantasy. It's pretty simple. All you got to do is sign up with the promo code Forno, and on your first $5 play, as it shows on the screen, you can get $100 in bonus funds. And the whole concept is very simple. You go higher and lower on 2 to 8 different plays, and you can get up to 1,000 times your original lineup. And I have a lot of fun with it. It's a really fun way, especially a game like tonight. Ravens-Dolphins, why would you want to watch that game? Well, play Underdog Fantasy. You can have a little bit of fun with it. I'm going to do some plays tomorrow for the World Series game. Blue Jays, Dodgers, potential clincher for the Jays. And see if Vlad Guerrero can get another home run to really seal the deal. And like it says on the screen, went up to 5,000 times your money. You just got to be in one of those states and use that promo code Forno, Forno, to get $100 in bonus credits on your first $5 play. That simple, that easy. And we talk about it in the Vikings First and SKOL Discord, which you should come check out. We got a nice little channel that's dedicated to stuff like Underdog Fantasy. So come on and join that. And remember, it's supposed to be fun. And if you find yourself having too much fun, please call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Yes, by all means.
So I mentioned at the top that I think the number one thing to beat the Lions is the pass rush, specifically the interior. When you have a pocket passer, the easiest way to disrupt them is by going straight ahead. Greenard is going to do his thing. Taylor Decker is still dealing with an injury. He's probably going to play. Penei Sewell's biggest weakness as a tackle is pass blocking. He's a nasty run blocker, but he's just above average as a pass blocker. So you can beat him in that aspect. The one thing where you can really take it to the Lions is on the interior, because they have a rookie in Tate Ratledge, a second-year player, 6th-round pick in Christian Mahogany, who, if you remember, I liked him. I liked him a decent amount. I thought he'd be a 3rd-round guy. Falling to round 6 to me was wild, but it's the NFL draft. Stuff happens. And then Graham Glasgow, the veteran, I think he's kicking back inside center. Their long-term plays, they want Tate Ratledge to play center, but Ratledge never played center at Georgia. So we'll see what that ends up looking like from a long-term and a short-term perspective. But that's where you can beat him. You have Jalen Redmond, who's absolutely dominating, playing dominant football right now. And then Jonathan Allen, look, he hasn't been as flashy. You expected a little more considering the contract you gave him, $17 million a year. But he's been solid. He's been good. And you need a little bit more from him. But it's not like you haven't been getting anything from him. He's been a good player for you. And getting him and Redmond up the field and pressuring the quarterback, and then once you see Levi Drake Rodriguez in the game getting after the quarterback with that effort, he's a little less of a pass rusher than the other guys, but he's not void of talent in that area. You have to get pressure on the inside. You have to push the pocket forward and make Jared Goff's life miserable, because he's not the kind of guy to escape easily. He's not the kind of guy to create on his own. You want to make his life hell in the pocket. The easiest way to do that is a straight line. That's why interior pressure is so valuable in the National Football League. It's hardest to do, but if you can accomplish it, Dave, it means all the difference because you can really make an impact by going forward. And this Vikings team is in a spot where they can do that. They can get Jalen Redmond, who is winning with double teams. He's winning single. He's winning in a multitude of ways on the interior. He had 9 pressures against the Chargers, one of which caused an interception, one of which nearly prevented a touchdown. That Lad McConkey touchdown on the outside where Jeff Okudah just got smoked. Jalen Redmond was about a quarter of a second away from whacking Herbert's arm and that just being a lame duck up in the air. And that could have changed the course of the entire game. Those little nuanced details matter. And if they can do that like they did against the Chargers, then this Lions team could be in real trouble because Goff, when pressured, is a significantly worse quarterback than when he isn't.
All right. That's the passing game. What about Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery?
I'm really intrigued if they take the same approach as they did against the Eagles. Don't make Jared Goff beat you and just try and push the pocket forward and stop him. Now, Jalen Hurts, look, let's just be real. The Eagles have much better weapons than the Lions do. Maybe not much better, but better. I would take A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith 10 out of 10 over Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. That's not an insult on those guys. They're just better football players. They're more dynamic, and they can do a lot more, especially in vertical concepts. Jameson Williams is pretty much, at this point, he's a gadget guy and a guy you send on crossers and go routes. That's what he is. And you know what? He's pretty dang good at that. Amon-Ra St. Brown is so good at the underneath stuff. So much like the 0 to 10 yard range, finding a little space in the zone, getting open, sitting down, catching the ball and getting a little bit of yards after catch, doing some of the gadget stuff that they like to do with like jet sweeps and handoffs. He's good at that too. But the one thing that they're not going to do nearly as well as what the Eagles do is attack you vertically. And I think by making a really big focus on stopping the run, which they did very well against the Eagles, and the Eagles arguably have just as good, if not a better, of a run game on an overall basis over the last 2 years than the Lions do. If you just sell out to stop the run, make Goff beat you, and continue to push the pocket, the one difference that you're going to have with the Lions approach versus the Eagles approach is you can ask your edge rushers to just go pin their ears back and go to town because Goff is not going to escape the pocket. And because he's not going to escape the pocket, you don't have to worry about containing him. But you push the pocket from the interior, you bend the arc. If you're Dallas Turner, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Greenard, then you make Jared Goff beat you by playing well under pressure. He's done that before, but over a large sample size, he struggles. And even in that Vikings-Lions end of season game last year, 2 interceptions, both came when he was pressured. And they were ugly interceptions, if you remember correctly. They were bad. The Vikings just couldn't do anything on offense. They were terrible. They couldn't take advantage of the mistakes that Goff gave them, but they forced them. If you can force them here and you can get, let's say, 10 points off of 2 interceptions, that's a huge swing in both momentum and on the scoreboard. And I think that's what you got to try to do. You have to make Jared Goff beat you when being blitzed.
Now, that's defensive side. What about the offensive side? How can the Vikings offense beat their defense?
McCarthy has to show that he's taken a step forward. I think they have to do some quick game stuff, find ways to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers without like 3 to 4 second routes. You're going to run some of that. You're going to do the drop back play action stuff. McCarthy's got to be smarter about how deep he's dropping, because one of the things that was really nice about Kirk Cousins was he was robotic with his drops. If he was taking an 8-yard drop, he'd drop it 8 yards every time. And Darrisaw O'Neal knew exactly how to block it. And they knew one of Darrisaw's best things is he just lets the edge rusher run around the quarterback. As if you go too deep, you can't get to the quarterback. And when you have an inconsistent quarterback dropping, if you drop, let's say 10 yards, well, guess who can get to the quarterback now? The edge rusher. And that's a really difficult part of this whole conversation. If you remember the Steelers game, Carson Wentz had one of those where he dropped too far back and then he just runs right to where the edge rusher can go get him. That's not on a guy like Darrisaw for blocking. That's on the quarterback for not escaping in the right path. And I think those elements, just cleaning up the basics and then being able to operate the offense. I've said before, and I do believe it, but it's a caveat every time. This offense is quarterback proof. And here's what I mean by that. If you have average quarterback play, this offense can run itself. You just need average quarterback play. You need Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold level quarterback play on an average day. That's it. You don't need elite. Elite is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to turn it down. But the idea of going with a rookie quarterback and maximizing that rookie contract is you can deal with some of the inconsistencies because this offense is built to help that player. It's built to maximize them. It's built to look at what they're doing, and it's built to just help them. Okay, so McCarthy isn't going to be able to go through 4 reads. Well, guess what? He can go through 2. And maybe you're just doing some half-field stuff, but that half-field stuff is so good it doesn't matter because you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson. Then they have to figure out how to establish the running game. Because if you can establish a run game for this quarterback, it's going to make his life a lot easier because those linebackers on play action, because they're going to want to run a lot of under center play action with McCarthy. That's what he's really, really good at Michigan. And the way the NFL is trending, a lot of that under center stuff is coming back because linebackers can be really exploited. Having great linebackers is a big deal in this league. The Lions have a good one in Jack Campbell, and they have some inconsistent play opposite him. Derek Barnes, I've heard, is improving. Alex Anzalone, go Gators, is an injury risk. He always is. He always seems to be hurt in some way, shape, or form, but he's a good football player too. But you can take advantage of some of those guys. And finding ways to exploit the linebackers and then pepper the ball over the top of them, get the ball to Jefferson and Addison, get it in their hands, and let them make things happen with it. That's what you need to do for McCarthy. You need to help him. And that's where this offense can be quarterback proof. Now, when you have bad quarterback play, like you had with Carson Wentz, it doesn't matter how good the talent is on offense. Carson Wentz is just bad. And there's really no way to get around it. And that's where, to me, if McCarthy can just play average football, play 16th to 20th best quarterback in the NFL, then you have a really good shot at being able to move the ball and play good football. Now, Wentz was playing like the 28th to 30th best quarterback in the league. It does not matter what some of the numbers said as far as passing yards and that kind of stuff. He was not playing good football. He was not seeing the field well. He was turning down easy throws. And I'm not talking easy throws as far as NFL quarterback. That miss to Jordan Addison in the flat, that could have been a touchdown against the Eagles, Dave. You could have made that throw. I could have made that throw. You go to a high school, the JV quarterback could have made that throw. It's a basic throw that every quarterback should be able to make with ease. And he absolutely dirted it. Average quarterback play. Just distribute the football. For lack of a better term, be a game manager. And this offense can take you far. It can take you places because of who's calling the plays in Kevin O'Connell and the talent you have everywhere on this roster. Just play average football, and then you can continue to grow and grow and grow. Like, you just got to find a way to help your young quarterback distribute the ball and get players in space to make plays. They don't have the yak guys that other teams do. Justin Jefferson isn't Jamar Chase in the yak department, even though he's arguably better in pretty much every other facet of the game. But if you get Jefferson in space, he's not inept in creating yards after the catch. He had the one catch, I think it was against the Eagles, that he took for 40 yards. He can do those kind of things. You just have to get him in the ball in those situations and let him make plays. And JJ McCarthy should be letting his players make plays around him because he should not be burdening the whole offense by himself.
They definitely should. Now, they've got a secondary that's beat up.
Yes, they do. Terrion Arnold's probably missed. He's probably going to return with a shoulder injury. Kirby Joseph is probably going to be out. They also have a couple backup players that are probably going to be out as well. The one interesting thing is they don't really miss a beat when they have like all these other players come in and step up, like Amik Robertson last year in the playoff or the final game of the year, really did a great job against Justin Jefferson. But we also found out that we honestly probably should have known Robertson and Jefferson, used to battle each other in high school at rival schools. So they're used to playing against each other. These elements are going to be huge and something that the Vikings just haven't been able to do enough of with their cornerback situation. Like, they're going into the game with Dwight McGlothern probably being a regular rotational player at corner. Do you want that? Are you sure he's ready for that? I know he flashed at the end of the Chicago game last year at the Dome, but man, there's a reason why they kept him off the field. So they are going to have to spend a lot of money to try a lot of resources, maybe not money, to try and fortify the cornerback position. I think they need to get a couple players in the draft, get some youth in here, get some high upside talent, because Rodgers has been good, but you need more than just two guys. What happens if one of them gets hurt? Then you feel like you're screwed. And that's the reality of playing in the NFL. You have to have a bunch of guys that you can trust to do something. I don't know if they trust Dwight McGlothern to do anything right now. And you know what? I don't want Josh Metellus playing in the slot. I want him to be that versatile chess piece. And guess what? He's been pigeonholed to playing basically a deep half. That's not his game. That's not why you pay Josh Metellus. Now you can have him do some of that stuff, but you paid him because he's just a weapon on defense. You can have him line up everywhere. You can have him line up on the line of scrimmage and drop into a Tampa 2. That cool interception he had in 23 against Jordan Love, he was lined up on the line of scrimmage and he ran back 40 yards and got the pick. That's the kind of stuff you ask Josh Metellus to do. You don't ask him to just be a basic safety. And I think that's been one of the tougher things for me this year. Harrison Smith, unfortunately, Dave, I just think he's cooked. He's 37. I just think he's done. And that really sucks.
Off the cliff.
He really has. And that's why with that illness that he was trying to rehab from, I wonder what that illness was. And I even opined maybe it was something like long COVID, where it was more like cardiovascular and impacted his, his endurance, because you just don't see the same player anymore. We don't know what it is. I have no inside sources or information on that, but it's a tough one because Smith has been so good for so long, and I want to see more from him, but I don't know if we're going to get it. And that's what really sucks.
He's still got his brain. So, the communication stuff helps. If Jackson would play better, that'd be nice too.
Yeah. There's a litany of different things with this defense, and it feels like that they need to figure out a way to better communicate across the board, and they have to just play better. We have to see better from these guys, and I do think that they can do that. Will they be able to accomplish it? We'll find out. But I do think that this is a winnable game for the Vikings. The problem with them actually winning this game, a lot has to go right. And that, to me, is the biggest hurdle. I think the Lions are going to end up winning this game, not because I don't want the Vikings to win, not because I don't think they can, but because it's going to take a lot for them to win this game. A lot has to go right.
They need to score in the first quarter. Hopefully twice.
Yeah.
Lead the score. Don't chase it.
Scoring in the first half would be nice. They don't do that. They haven't scored a first quarter touchdown, I think, since the Falcons game last December. It was December. It might have been the Packers game in December. But it's been a long time. They haven't done it this year yet. Not a single first quarter touchdown. They got to figure out a way to get off on the right foot and not play from behind. Last year they got up early all the time. It makes things easier for the defense, makes things easier for the offense. You can't expect that kind of performance, but you can just get one touchdown, make it 7-7, and then middle of the second quarter, you're tied. Like, that makes things easier for everybody. There's not a lot of tension. There's not a lot of stress. There's not a lot of, hey, we need to get the ball rolling now or it's going to get bad. That's what happened against the Chargers. It snowballed. It got bad. Now, I think some of that has to do with the fact that the Isaiah Rodgers pick six didn't count, which was inexplicable. I don't understand how you can be on the wrong end of a review like 3 weeks in a row, but the Vikings, they always find a way. They always find a way. Just really tough across the board. And I want to see more. I want to see them get off on the right foot. McCarthy's going to show us a lot. I don't know what he's going to show us yet. But whatever it is, it's going to give us a lot of information about what he can be moving forward and how much he's actually learned over the course of these last 6 weeks.
I keep seeing an ear pop up in the corner.
Oh, that's Marzipan. She's on the floor. She's just playing.
Daniel, you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
Saying we need good coaching for this game. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be just fine in the coaching department. I think the mini bye is going to help wake some things up. And what was interesting is last year they were also rough coming out of the bye, but they weren't this rough. They lost to the Lions by 2 points, and they were honestly 6 inches away from beating the Lions because that Justin Jefferson pass, if that's just a 6 inches shorter, that's a first down, and then the Vikings run off the clock. And then they lost to the Rams, which Thursday night games are weird. I kind of try to isolate Thursday night games to a point because you're running a short week, and it just creates a lot of different things that make it difficult. So we'll see.
Dennis asks, just joined the podcast. Did you guys talk about Alex Lewis's comment about turmoil? He said he thought the team was going through.
I want to approach this delicately because I like Alec. I think he does a good job. And I don't think anything he said was untrue. But it's also something where if you're not willing to just come out and say what it is, I'm going to refrain from comment, because that in itself is a difficult situation, because I don't know what the turmoil is. I don't know what it's rooted in. I don't know so much of what that could be. So I don't want to make a comment without really knowing anything. And until we can sit here in turmoil, because let's just be real. They hear from a couple people that, oh, there's tension. Like, we heard from national reporters that McCarthy showed a lot of immaturity during his rehab process. Could have just been one bad day where McCarthy was just frustrated that he wasn't out on the field and he was just having a rough one. We've all had those mental days. So until we get more information about what that turmoil is, I'm staying out of it, because there's nothing to gain by trying to opine on something I just don't know about. So could there be? Yeah. Do we know that for sure? Until it's reported, no, we don't. And that's the difficult part about the job of somebody like Alec Lewis, because it's his job to kind of find stuff, but he can only say so much. And until he is able to or knows more about what the situation is, I'm just going to leave it alone. It could be a big deal. It could be absolutely nothing. And that's the tough part about some of these things, because we don't know until we know. And I don't think it's worth speculating on. And I hope you guys respect that, because it's a difficult thing. We don't know if it's a huge deal or if it's absolutely nothing.
We'll find out.
Yes, we will. But unfortunately, I don't think we're going to find out till after the season, when people, especially those who are going to be out of the building after the year, they're going to be the ones to talk. They're going to be the ones to say things. And you're going to get very specific leaks. So I'm intrigued to find out what it is. I don't want to take guesses on it. I don't think it does anybody any good for us to guess on what the turmoil can be, because it could be as simple as, hey, Brian Flores ate my candy bar and I'm mad about it. Then he goes and tells a staffer, and then you know how rumors go. It could have been Tommy kissed Susie on the playground, and then all of a sudden it just expands to something way more than that by the time it gets to person number 6. So until we get some more in-depth, credible reporting, we're going to stay away. And that's not an insult to Alec. Like, he obviously knows stuff, but there's only so much he's able to or allowed to say. And until he's able to or knows more to say more, I'm going to stay away.
So, do you think the Vikings are going to win Sunday?
No, but I think they can win. A lot just has to go right for what this Vikings team is. And the Lions are a very good football team. So I think that they'll end up making it competitive, but I don't think they win.
Gotcha.
I don't think they win. So, yeah, well, I think this is going to be a fun game. It's going to tell us a lot. you know what? If they lose, but they play really well and keep it close, I think you should feel better about where this Vikings team is trending, because it's hard to win division games and it's very hard to win them on the road. It's a layered conversation, but if they play well, we should feel a lot better about this team.
We're going to hear that going on out. So,
yeah,
especially
this is all about
if JJ McCarthy is the real deal.
And that's what the rest of the season is going to be. See if he's legit. Plus, I mean, the NFC is a lot better this year. They can still make the playoffs. It's going to take probably 7 more wins out of the next 10 games. You got to go 7-3. But there's a chance this team makes the playoffs. They rattled off 9 in a row last year when we thought that this team would collapse with Sam Darnold. Now, they stunk. Okay. Let's address this from T. Kubler and then out. If this was a leak about Kirk turmoil, well, all the Kirk stuff was very specific. So we could, have a conversation about the specific stuff. Like when he says, I'm going to do anything to help this team win the game, and then he didn't get the COVID-19 shot. Well, that's something. And you said you'll do anything to win, and that prevented you from missing a game. Like that was uber specific. When we had the Kirk stuff, it was all specific stuff. This stuff that we got from Alec wasn't very specific. It was very like, I'm hearing stuff and I'm confident enough to kind of allude to it, but I'm not confident enough or able to report it yet. And that's why we're staying away. If he has something concrete, we'll talk about it. I guarantee you that. But there wasn't enough concrete stuff for me to feel comfortable talking about it yet. Whereas the Kirk stuff, yeah, there's a lot of that was very, very concrete stuff. Oh, to Eva, I don't think that this team is like super close to last year's team or schedule or anything. I'm just saying that like the core of this team did it once already. So can they win 7 of 10 when they won 9 in a row last year? I think it's possible. A little lofty, but it's possible. But that's going to be our show. It's going to be a really fun weekend watching the Minnesota Vikings. We get to see more of JJ McCarthy and to see if he's really going to be the guy. Because there's still questions about if he's going to be the guy. And I'm excited to find out. And then don't forget, 2 Old Bloggers, 10:05 a.m. Central Time on Saturday. And we'll have the post-game show, which will start at the 2-minute warning on Sunday afternoon, probably around 2:50, 2:55. And then we'll carry that in. And then Real Forno Show on Monday, 6:05 Central Time. We got a lot of stuff. Make sure you check out X's and SKOLs from earlier today and from yesterday, Who Will Be King, both on this podcast feed and YouTube channel. And then make sure you hit like, subscribe, ring the bell, and join the Vikings First and SKOL Discord. From producer Dave, I'm Tyler. SKOL Vikings, everybody.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!